Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us here at the Sports Page. My name is Ken Kraetzer. I'm with the Sons of the American Legion. It's my colleague, John Sharan. And we're very appreciative to have Mark Beech, West Point grad, editor from Sports Illustrated, his wife Allison with us. And I wanted to introduce to you our host for the evening, Bob Hyland. Bob has operated this restaurant in a couple locations, and Bob played in the NFL for the New York Giants and notably for the Green Bay Packers. And Bob, show them your souvenir of Super Bowl II.
Well, unfortunately, Ken, I don't have my Super Bowl.
Did you bring it tonight, Bob? Oh, gosh.
I got my players. I don't know what I was thinking of.
Okay.
I do have my Players Association ring, but I should have worn my Super Bowl.
Okay. Well, Bob played for Vince Lombardi, who we know, of course, coached at West Point prior to the New York Giants, and then before going to the Green Bay Packers. So, part of the famous West Point story that Mark Beech has told so well in his book, When Saturdays Matter. And I just want to thank Tracy from Anderson's Bookshop down in Larchmont. When you need a book, please go down to Anderson's. There's very few independent bookstores, as we know, and Anderson is one of the best in the country, and we appreciate them supplying the books that Mark, if you haven't bought one already, you'll be able to purchase and have Mark sign after the event tonight. And again, in the Sons of the American Legion, we're sport organization of the American Legion, and my dad was a U.S. Army officer. I had two uncles who went to West Point. John Sharan's father was a U.S. Army officer who landed in the early moments of D-Day. And so we honor the memories of our father's service and help with many of the activities of our parent organization, the American Legion, the world's largest veterans organization, and all the work that they do to support the active military and veterans. Now today, we're very pleased to have a talk by West Point author Mark Beech. And Mark is a second-generation West Point graduate, 5-year veteran of the United States Army. And he's been since then a writer, reporter, and editor at Sports Illustrated magazine. And last year, he published his book, When Saturday Mattered Most, the last golden season of Army football. And so we're going to have a chance to ask Mark some questions about the book. And so very glad to have you. Now, there's one thing. We have a tradition in the Sons of the American Legion. Whenever you're a podium speaker and your wife is at the event, you must introduce your wife. So I just want to introduce my wife, Carrie, who just was able to join us. And Carrie hears more about West Point football than I think anyone should ever have to go there. But we appreciate her joining us and her support. So, Mark, please join us at the podium. Mark, welcome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you decided to go to West Point and the legacy of your family's service in the military?
Sure. First of all, I want to say that I get it out of the way right away. I didn't play football at West Point. I run on the crew team. Actually, it's a very strange coincidence. My coach is here tonight. Is Steve Arati, sitting at the table with my wife Allison. Coached me on the crew team for 2 or 3 years, and it was a huge influence in my life. I first got the idea to go to West Point, and first got the idea to write this book because my father was a career military guy and was class 59, so he was classmates with the seniors on this 58 football team. And in the 70s, in the early 70s, when I was a kid, I would go back and we'd be at my grandparents' house, and there's not much to do. So I used to pour through the pages of my father's howitzer, which they always had on their coffee table, and that was very influential in many ways, but also probably most importantly in the fact that I was flabbergasted that Army had been undefeated and had been ranked #1 and had this Heisman Trophy winning halfback. It was just, in the 70s especially, that was unthinkable. So I've always been fascinated by the 58 team, and then my dad knew that he knew, not only knew Pete Dawkins, but he'd been in Korea when Bill Carpenter had been a battalion commander over there, and he had been running into these guys all through his military career. So this book has always kind of been sitting out there for me, and I never had really thought about it. And I met an agent in the city one day, a literary agent. I was thinking about writing a book, and he was like, "Well, do you have any ideas?" And I said, "Well, I just have this one idea, but it can't possibly be a book because it's the only one I have." And he actually said, "Well, you know, why don't you write up a proposal, and that might actually turn into something." And they bought it right away. And the great part for me of writing the whole book was finding out over the next year and a half or so that I was working on it was that it wasn't just an idea. It was a real book. There were great characters on this team, and of course Red Blake was a tremendous influence to everybody. And so it was a very gratifying experience in many ways. Probably more than you wanted to do.
Well, what did it take to, I understand from the folks at West Point that you went through a lot of the old records and of the 1940s and 50s to research Earl Blake and the great players and team of that era. What did it take to go about and actually write the book?
Well, I was fortunate in the fact that a lot of these guys, you know, from the 58 team were still, you know, they're all alive and kicking, and they want to talk about it. You know, they have reunions every 5 years, and so they're very, you know, they call themselves a band of brothers, and they're very into what they did because they know as the years have gone by, it's only gotten more and more significant, and so they're sort of unofficial historians. And so I had a great resource right there. But the archives at West Point, which are in this beautiful new building in Jefferson Hall, which is in front of where the library entered when I was a cadet, was an amazing resource. They wheeled out 2 giant carts of library books for me, and I was going through the superintendent's daily correspondence from the fall of '58, and Red Blake's personal files are there, and I think I still have it on my phone somewhere. I took a picture of his resignation letter because there were some amazing artifacts up there, and including a letter written by the Vice President of the United States indicating that he'd received and understood Army's ticket policy for the 1958 season. Richard Nixon was up to date on what was going on with Army football. And